Okay, children as slaves. There are a few instances where God allows slavery of children, more specifically Numbers 31:15 through 18. If God had no use for these children in this world, then he could have then moved them from the earth to be with him. But in this case he let Israel take them as servants. From God's perspective, we can see that a child growing up in a culture as wicked as the Midianites, it is merciful to remove them from this situation. To let the children be raised by Israel could save them a lot of heartache as long as Israel obeyed God. Would it be better for that child to grow up in a country where the slave laws protected him or her? Or would it be better for the child to have to grow up in a wicked culture and be sacrificed, passing through the fire to Molech? When nations were conquered by the Israelites, something had to be done with the children who remained alive. They could be left to die on their own, or they could be given homes, food, and jobs. Which of the options is preferable? Furthermore, if the child grew up and did not like his master, he or she could simply run away and live wherever she wanted, according to Deuteronomy 23:15 through 16. Numbers 31:15 through 18 doesn't specifically say why the girls were kept, but God, being just, certainly didn't have evil on his mind when allowing it. Another problem is the account doesn't say what the ages of the girls or others involved were. So I can't say without further research as to the exact reason, but keeping in mind that God is just, I can think of some plausible reasons. Some plausible explanations of Numbers 31:15 through 18, assuming the girls were not guilty of some abomination, would be: the young girls were kept to assimilate them into their culture, Israel's culture, that they could train them in the ways of God and take as wives, but not by force. The girls would have been more likely to take on the beliefs of the Jews. The boys, because they would be less likely to assimilate, and possibly because they would rebel violently or lead Israel into accepting false pagan customs, were killed. That is, moved from this life to the next. Because of wars and other troubles, Israel's male population would be down, and therefore God could allow Israel to take the girls as wives in order to keep the population up. Some skeptics say that they were kept to be raped, but this is untenable. God forbade rape and required the death penalty for it. Capital punishment for moral crimes apply to all people everywhere for all time. Their girls couldn't live on their own in their destroyed land, so either death or servanthood is merciful. The boys, again, would not be kept alive because they were more likely to rebel. They would be servants forever because for a woman to survive on her own at that time would be very hard. Forever here could be a figure of speech meaning until the next year of Jubilee, 50 years, as described in Leviticus 25:40. As a hired servant and a sojourner he shall be with you, and he shall serve you until the year of Jubilee. For the ones put to death, perhaps the Israelites could not handle taking on a lot of orphans. They would be overwhelmed by their numbers, and so by God's authorization they would kill them. Certainly Israel's enemies would fear this and perhaps fear the living God. Taking slaves as prisoners of war could be used by God to reduce the fervor for war. Both sides would be less inclined to go to war if they knew that upon losing they would become slaves. There is a verse that backs this up, but at this time I can't find it, but I'll keep searching. So in closing, I ask, why do skeptics and atheists, when they don't know why something in the Bible occurred, explain things trying to show that God is evil. They never try to show that there's a reasonable explanation. I'm certain it's because they hate God and don't really care to understand.